In many cultures, sons are more valuable than daughters. Among rich traditional Asian families, sons ensure that the family's name and wealth are passed on to the next generation. In the movie Parasite, the wealthy Mr. and Mrs. Park lavish more attention on their restless 9-year-old son than their older daughter. But for poor families, the opposite seems to be true. Daughters are a premium because, all things being equal, poor daughters have a better shot at social mobility than poor sons. Why? There's this joke among working-class Filipinos living in affluent Hong Kong that alludes to this line of thinking. If you're poor, better to have daughters than sons. A poor son with no education, unless he's super smart or super handsome or super lucky, is likely to stay poor. But a poor daughter with no education, if she's pretty, she can always marry a rich guy. And if she's ugly, she can always marry a white guy. The joke is politically incorrect, yet there's some uncomfortable truth in it. Indeed, in many poor households, strong women are the breadwinners. In the movie, the poor Kim family is dominated by strong women. However, it is the feisty and cunning younger daughter Jessica who is seen as the only one with a real shot at climbing the social ladder without having to marry into wealth. She certainly has not just the looks, but the tools and the tricks to get what she wants on her own. That's why her parents, the sweet and sarcastic Mr. and Mrs. Kim, heap praises and high hopes on their prized daughter.
네네. 저년 저거 사기를 쳤어도 대성하려는데 저년이야.
보이스톤 참 좋지. 나 닮았어.
In contrast, Mr. and Mrs. Kim laugh when their older son Kevin, aka the man with the plan, announced that he will marry the Park family daughter someday. They all laugh because they know it's not going to happen.
다혜야. 응? 나 잘 어울려?
Jessica, on the other hand, looks like she was born to be rich, as Kevin himself points out.
야, 제시카, 건배.
야, 너 아까 내가 위에 올라가서 너 아까 욕조에서 목욕할 때
목욕 뭐?
뭐랄까 어울린다 그래야 되나?
So what makes Jessica so symbolic and indeed controversial? In director Bong Joon-ho's beautifully layered take on class warfare, rich in metaphors and symbolisms, Jessica represents a powerful female archetype, that of the strong, independent woman who ironically becomes the victim in the end. This dynamic is essential to understanding the film's critique on modern capitalism and the established order. In the movie, the Parks and the Kims represent stark dichotomies. The rich Parks are headed by a dominant father and a subservient mother. In the poor Kims, parental authority is shared more democratically between both parents, even though we often see the strong, assertive Mrs. Kim dominate, in an endearing way of course, her henpecked, happy-go-lucky husband. Both families have 2 children. The Parks have an older daughter and a younger son, suggesting that when their firstborn turned out to be a girl, they tried to go for a boy the second time around, because, well, rich sons are preferred over rich daughters. For the Kims, it's the opposite. The son is older and the daughter is younger, suggesting that sons are a risk and daughters an insurance. Daughters are hope for a better future. This may all seem coincidental or overanalyzing, but given the director's well-known love of metaphors and his command of every tiny detail in the movie, it's most likely by design. In a way, one can argue that the Kims represent the natural order, which has existed long before the dawn of human civilization. It's organic and matriarchal. It's Mother Nature herself, since it's the women who are the gatekeepers, who hold the keys to reproductive success, because women have the power to choose. and men have the burden of competition. Some call this biological destiny. The parks represent the established order upon which modern civilization as we know it is built. It's man-made and patriarchal. It's a man's world, and those in power, whether they're aware of it or not, stay in power by setting the rules and systematically keeping in check any threat that dares to cross the line. In a way, Jessica is the only character who manages to cross the line. She dominates everyone in the Park household, including the man of the house himself. Although she does this indirectly, Jessica is the only member of the Kim family we see in parallel scenes with Mr. Park occupying positions of privilege and power. In one scene where Jessica assertively rebuffs the advances of the Park family driver, she plans a souvenir that not only crosses the line, but also leaves a scent Mr. Park can't get out of his mind. Indeed, patriarchy can't stand competition and will put a leash on strong, independent women, but would compromise if sex is on the menu. That sounds pretty much like the history of human civilization in a nutshell. Ultimately, the movie is not just about class warfare, it's also a battle royale of the sexes. It's about nature versus nurture, chaos versus order, the world of vigor and chance versus the world of rules and plans. It's about Jessica, the strong, independent woman, being the only character with a legitimate shot at turning the system on its head, not by seizing power for herself, but by influencing the future generation to see things differently. In the movie's climax, there's a birthday skit where Mr. Park is supposed to attack Jessica, and the future Mr. Park swoops in to save the day. We all know how that ends. In the ensuing chaos, both Mr. Park and Jessica die gruesome deaths, and with it the death of innocence, suggesting that when two worlds collide, when the schemes of men meet the randomness of nature, it's bound to get really messy. In this topsy-turvy world, plans are pointless.
나 절대 실패하지 않는 계획이 만족하네. 무계획이야, 무계획. No plan. 왜냐? 계획을 하면 반드시.
If you dare to swing the pendulum against the balance of things, natural or otherwise, you have to be prepared for that pendulum to swing right back at you. It's a vicious cycle, or a virtuous one. Poor son Kevin knows he doesn't stand a chance, and the best he can do is to laugh at the absurdity of it all.